Let me guess. You forgot I even took a trip last May. Sounds about right. I almost forgot myself because a lot of things have happened in my life since then, some of them good, some of them not so good, and I stopped making videos because I just didn't have time and energy, and um, I almost thought about just letting it go and not even worrying about making videos about the rest of the trip and just having my photos as memories. But I kind of stopped right at the time that it would be the most useful to those of you who are taking trips to New York, and that is the time in the city, and the information about public transportation and things like that. So I also have to start planning my parents' trip to New York this coming May, and I wanted to get all these things down before I forget everything. I think I've already forgot a lot of things. So I'm just going to make one long video of the entire rest of the trip and try to get all the details in that I remember, all the tips in, and hopefully those of you who have told me you're going to New York or have been to New York or are going to go to New York again, hopefully some of this will help you in some ways, I hope. Otherwise, thank you for being patient and bearing with me and watching these incredibly long and wordy videos. So we stopped at Warwick. We did not actually get to tour Warwick facility because we did not know that we would not be able to get reservations at the time that we were going. So that was kind of sad. But we did get to drive by and we saw the beautiful Sterling, let's see, it's called, I have it written down, Sterling Forest State Park. That is where Warwick is built. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Green, trees, mountains, rocks, cliffs, water, lakes, beautiful, beautiful place. Just the natural beauty alone. And we saw the studio at Tuxedo. We drove right past it where they do the broadcast every month. So that was really special that we at least got to drive past and see. And we spent some time in the town of Warwick. It's considered the most beautiful village in the world, and you will understand why when you visit it. It's very charming Victorian town. We went to a place called Ye Olde Bookshop, which is exactly like what you would imagine bookstores in Victorian London would be like. It's crowded, there's a creaky staircase, there's a lot of wood, there's of course books everywhere. The guy running it has this huge like white beard. It's very iconic and cozy, and we just loved it. So anyway, we all, I think, bought books there. And so then a little bit further down the street in the same, in the village of Warwick, there's a place called Cactus Pete's Jerky, beef jerky shop. And the guys liked this. They do lots of different flavors of beef jerky, like strange ones, like apple pie and things like that. And I really enjoyed sampling some of them. I'm not a huge beef jerky person, but if you are, you shouldn't miss it. And I think the guy's wife who runs it, he is a witness. He isn't, but his wife is. And then the girls and I, we got to go and have afternoon tea at a beautiful old, it looks like a traditional sort of Victorian mansion almost, and it's called Charlotte's Tea Room. And we had such a nice time. The rooms were decorated in such a beautiful way, and the food was delicious, and the tea was delicious, and it was just a really special treat. Then we were driving to our hotel in Newark, New Jersey, and on the way we stopped at a place called Palisades Climb Adventure. And this was in a mall called Palisades Center Mall or Palisades Mall in West Nyack, New York. And this is a rope course, an obstacle course, where you're strapped in and you climb on a bunch of things, and then there's a zip line at the end. and it was a lot of fun. If you are traveling with teenage boys, you have to do this. I think my teenage nephew probably liked this one more than anything in the whole trip. We had such a nice time. My sister-in-law found a Groupon. I think it only cost us about $12 per person, so it was reasonable, something like that with a Groupon. And if you have anybody in your group who is a little bit on the heavy side, it's a perfect rope course for them, and I'll tell you why. I have been on many rope courses, and sometimes even though the rope is more than capable of carrying the weight, when you put your weight on it, it causes the rope to sag down a little. So then when you try to climb to the next rope, if you're not really tall, like I'm really short, so then because there's an increased distance to the next rope, sometimes I'm not able to climb to the next one, and I can't get the higher rope down far enough to where I can reach it and climb up on it without putting my weight on that second rope. And so sometimes rope courses, even though they are typically safe for people up to like 300 pounds and more, they're not easy to climb on if you're not tall as well as large. And so I'm very short, so it was very difficult for me to do only rope courses. But this particular Palisades Climb Adventure is perfect because it has rope and wooden adventure things. So you can go on the obstacles that are just rope, or you can go on ones that are rope combined with wood where you can step on the wooden pieces as well. Or they have many obstacles that are made only out of wooden beams. So that's stable. So I was able to do almost all the exhibits and adventures that had combined the wooden beams as well, and not only rope. And I was able to do the zip line twice. The first time I thought I wasn't going to be able to stand up because it didn't land me on my feet. It just kind of landed me about 4 inches above a seated position, and I wasn't sure I'd be able to use my thighs and get myself back up, but I was, and did that again and had a wonderful time. I was scared, but it was awesome. I highly recommend that. So the first day in the city, we took the PATH train into the World Trade Center station, which was very, very beautiful and kind of a modern architecture, and it looked gorgeous. And then we saw the 9/11 Memorial, which is a beautiful like water feature memorial with all the names of the people who died. It's really, really sad. You can't really stand there very long because there's just so many names, and it's just really sad. But then we took a subway to the place where you get on the Staten Island Ferry. And I swiped my Metro card. I got an unlimited Metro card for the New York City subway. I swiped my card, and the light turned green for me to go through, but it was only on for like a second, and I didn't hurry really fast and go through the thing. And so then I tried to swipe my card again, and it locked me out. So my stepbrother and sister-in-law and their kids get on the subway, and the subway takes off, and I'm just left there. So you need to know that if you buy an unlimited Metro card, you cannot swipe it twice in less than 10 minutes. They do that to keep people from buying one unlimited card and letting lots of different people use it. So when you swipe it and it turns green, you run through the turnstile because you have literally about a second to get through there, because they also want to make sure that multiple people aren't going through the turnstile at once. So I ended up having to walk to the place where the Staten Island Ferry takes off, and it was only about a 7-minute walk, and so my family was nice and they waited on me. And so then we did the Staten Island Ferry. The reason we did the Staten Island Ferry is because I had read that you could get good views of the Statue of Liberty without having to stand in line and without having to pay the admission fee. And because the Staten Island Ferry is free, I thought it's a free little boat ride. We'll get there to Staten Island, we'll turn around, we'll get back on the ferry, it'll be that. Unfortunately, it was kind of rainy that day, so I was not able to get great photos of the Statue of Liberty or the city, unfortunately, because there was water on the windows, and I don't have a great camera, as you can tell. And also, you don't get as close to the Statue of Liberty as I thought you would get. So even though it is free, and even though you do see the Statue of Liberty from it, I would probably skip that if I was going again, just because I didn't think the view that I got was worth the amount of time when we only had a short amount of time in the city. So after the Staten Island ferry, we went and got on the ferry to Governor's Island. We wanted to go to a place called Slide Hill on Governor's Island. Governor's Island is a beautiful place. It has an old fort that is built to look like an old castle. They ended up making it into a prison. And there's lots of beautiful old Victorian houses and lots of green space, and it's just a lovely little island. And you walk all the way around to the back of it, which is a very long walk, and they have built slides into a hill that go from really small to kind of large. There's 4 different heights of the slide. And so of course the kids loved it. They had fun. There was lots of kids there. They've got a guy selling ice cream, so it's kind of cute for that. In my opinion, it's too much walking for the amount of fun that you have. The slides aren't really that high. I think they're really pretty. They look nice. We got some great photos, but New York City almost murdered my feet. I was kind of a big baby the whole time because my feet were hurting so much. And Governor's Island, while pretty, it's too much walking for the amount of time that you have in New York City, and it's too hard on the feet. It was free. The ferry to Governor's Island is free if you get on it before 11 a.m. So it was free. And in fairness, we did get lost, and so that added to our walk. But even still, I think if you don't get lost, the walk from where the ferry lets off to where the slides are, it's basically at 2 opposite ends of the island. There is no way you can do it and it not be a lot of walking. So to me, Slide Hill is nice, but if I were you, I'd skip it. But after we did Governor's Island and Slide Hill, we went next door to Battery Park. It was beautiful, lots of beautiful flowers, and there's something called the Glass Carousel. And it's kind of a new thing, and a lot of local New Yorkers have been taking their kids and riding it, and it's just like a regular carousel, except instead of horses, they are fish. And instead of being elaborately painted, they have an LED light show that takes place at the same time that the carousel is running, which causes the fish to change colors, and it feels kind of like you are swimming through the ocean. And they play really mellow music, and it costs $5. So I really enjoyed the Sea Glass Carousel. Only me and my 2 nieces rode it. I guess it was kind of a girly thing or kind of a kid thing to everybody else, but I really loved it, and I would have ridden it like 3 more times if we had had time. So that was awesome. I highly recommend Battery Park and Sea Glass Carousel. I think it's worth the $5. It's a short ride, but I enjoyed it anyway. So okay, so after that, we went to Chinatown. So Staten Island Ferry Governor's Island Ferry and Battery Park are all on this southern tip of Manhattan, of course, and they're all very close together. So those things were like right next door to one another, easily walkable. So after we did those things, we went to Chinatown, one of my favorite parts of the trip. We went to three amazing places. First of all, we went to a place called Ten Ren Tea, and they had amazing loose teas and bag teas and expensive rare teas and tea accoutrements and all kinds of just really cool stuff. And I got this really nice kiwi strawberry tea. It has bits of freeze-dried fruits. It smells absolutely wonderful. I have been trying not to drink it too fast. I probably should have given this to someone as a gift, but I just selfishly kept it for myself. It's 4 ounces of loose tea, very fine loose tea, and I think it cost $10. So it was a definite splurge and gift for myself. If you like tea at all, you have to go to Ten Ren Tea in Chinatown. It's a really cool place to be. So we also went to a place called Igloo. Igloo has these giant waffle cones with these soft eggy waffles and an ice cream as big as my head. It was delicious and it cost $10, but it's an ice cream that's worth $10, and the line was out the door. People just love it. It's very iconic Chinatown, Manhattan indulgence, and I loved it. Across the street from Igloo is Columbus Park, which is super ethnic and exciting and beautiful. There were people playing some kind of like Asian sounding, like Chinese sounding musical instruments. There was someone performing what looked like some kind of a Chinese style opera, and doing some kind of like, I don't know, Tai Chi or some kind of dance or something. And the structures in the park appear to be very Chinese, and it's extremely crowded with Asian Americans, and it's very cultural and rich and just an interesting place to just people watch. And then we went to a place called Pearl River Mart. In my opinion, Pearl River Mart is the place to buy any and all souvenirs for anybody that you want to buy gifts for when you go to New York. They have a gorgeous chinoiserie. They have beautiful embroidered silks and satins, robes, slippers, Chinese fans, Chinese parasols, beautiful pottery, tea sets, teacups, crockery, Chinese and Asian candies, rare foods, rare teas, beautiful, beautiful stuff, garments, apparel, and all at really reasonable prices, and some really cute gifts and fun gift ideas. And so I absolutely say, if you have anybody you want to buy something for, go to Pearl River Mart in Chinatown. You will not regret it. Now, Sunday was a big day. We went to Central Park in the morning. I remember my mom telling me that she went to Central Park 20 years ago and there were rats running everywhere. It's not like that anymore. Central Park is absolutely beautiful. The playgrounds are beautiful. There's these natural stone sort of mounds where the kids can climb and play that are really beautiful. And even the bathrooms, the architecture is really beautiful. And there's little ponds, little bridges, lots of flowers. Central Park is very, very beautiful. We walked around Central Park for several hours, at least 2 hours on Sunday. Then we did the Met tour. Oasis Bible Tours has a excuse me, a guided tour at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is right next door to Central Park. And the Metropolitan Museum of Art is very similar, again, to like the palaces and the castles and the grand museums that you see in Europe. It's a fascinating building in and of itself, just the architecture and the beauty, not to mention all the famous pieces of art. And to me, that visit to the museum was more faith strengthening than even the Bethel tours that we were able to take, because they go through every single period in history and how the artifacts that have been collected by archaeologists line up precisely with the biblical account of history. And it's so interesting to see how the society has modeled all of the costumes in the illustrations, in our literature, after actual pieces that they have found and carbon dated from those periods. So you will walk through and actually recognize pieces of jewelry from actual antiquity that are, you know, hundreds, sometimes thousands of years old, because you've seen an artist depiction of that exact piece in a Watchtower Awake. So it's a wonderful thing to do. I strongly recommend it. You do have to pay the full admission to go to the Met to do that tour. I think it's $25, and then you do, it is recommended that you tip the tour guide, because I guess they are not paid separately for that. And so it was a foot killer. It was another thing that was very, very hard on the feet. If I were you, I may only do that during a day and not walk Central Park at the same time, even though they're right next door to one another, because it was a lot on my feet. After that, we went out to dinner at a place called, oh, but before I tell you that, the Met has a clearance store. If you want to buy souvenirs for anyone at a good price, downstairs, the Met has a clearance store, and I got some really beautiful gifts that were very inexpensive. And the Met artwork and gifts are very, very nice. So when you can get them on sale, it's a good idea. But it always closes earlier than the actual museum closes. And the museum closes pretty early. I think it closes like 5 o'clock most days. So you, if you have a tour guide that's very loquacious like we did, and he was wonderful to hear, but you may have to actually leave your tour if you want to be able to shop in the Met store, because they will close, I think, 30 minutes before the museum closes. So be sure you know when the museum is closing, because you can miss your opportunity to see that. And so just be aware of that. So after that, we went to dinner at a place called Playa Betty. It was actually a Mexican food restaurant in New York, and I wasn't sure if it would be good, but it was actually very, very good. And then we went to a place called Cafe Lalo. And my sister-in-law had found this place. It's actually featured in a movie that I loved from the 90s called You've Got Mail. And they only have desserts and drinks, but it was such a beautiful place and so iconic. And we took some photos, and they have little souvenir, little match boxes and things that I got from there. And so that was Sunday. We did not end up getting in until, I know, back to Newark until 11:30 or 12. And so Sunday was an awesome day, and my last day with my family members. And so I had to say goodbye to them. It was sad, but we had an awesome day, and we packed it full of amazing things. Okay, so the 2 days I was in New York City by myself. The first day I was supposed to go to a show called Live with Kelly. I actually had a ticket to be in the live studio audience. I was really excited about it, not because I love that show so much, but just because I always wanted to be in the live studio audience of a television show. But I had to be there at 7 a.m. Now, I've already told you that the commute from Newark, New Jersey, my hotel room, to Manhattan was 2 hours. And also, to be in the live studio audience on a television show, they have very strict dress codes. They want you to look very, very nice. And if you don't, they might actually send you away. So I would have had to have gotten up at between the latest 4 a.m. And the night before, we didn't get back to our hotel until I think about midnight. and my feet had been swollen and in a lot of pain for several days by that time. And I think physically I just couldn't handle it because I set my alarm early and I tried to get up, and as soon as I woke up I was like really physically sick and just couldn't do it. And so I missed Live with Kelly, and I was really disappointed at the time, but I do live about a 6-hour drive from LA, and there are actually a lot more shows to choose from that you can be in the live studio audience in LA, so we'll do that another time. The next thing on the itinerary, I can't say enough good things about this website called Free Tours by Foot. If you go to the New York part of the site, you have to choose your city. Not only do they have enough interesting things to keep you going the entire time you're in New York City, they also have lots of blogs and information about every other thing you would ever need to know when you're in New York City. How to get around, the best tours to take, how much everything costs. One tip I may not have told you guys before, but you always want to be sure to have lots of cash when you're in New York City, because a lot of places do not take credit and debit cards, and I don't think anywhere takes checks anymore. So always have cash. I took like a money belt that went under my clothing because, you know, it's easy to get pickpocketed or to have your purse stolen, and I didn't have any problems. So I went on this thing called Greenwich Village Food Tour. You can choose from literally hundreds of tours at Free Tours by Foot. And Greenwich Village is a beautiful place. We started off in at a place called Waverly Cafe, which is just a beautiful old cafe in Greenwich Village and just in a beautiful neighborhood. And then we went to Washington Square Park, which has the large iconic arch that was built as a replica of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And it's very, very beautiful. It's not as large as the one in Paris, but it's still very large and very beautiful. And you can get some great photos there, and the fountains are very pretty. And then the food tours with Free Tours by Foot, what you do is you have cash, right? So the tour guide, she's walking you around to different famous eateries in Greenwich Village. And there was about 30 people in the tour. And she goes in, everybody who wants to sample the specialty gives her a $1 bill. She goes in, she gets enough samples for the number of people who want to try the food, and she brings them out and everybody tries their bit. And if you don't like the sound of something, you just don't give her the dollar and you don't try that one. So I tried an artichoke pizza, which was delicious. I tried these Italian fried rice balls with cheese. They have like a really fancy name, but I can't remember it right now. These little stuffed bagel bites, another more traditional like red sauce pizza, and I think it's called Bleecker Street Pizza, very famous. And then we ate Molly's cupcakes, which were really lavish and beautiful. Also we went to a place called Mamoun's Falafel, and we tasted falafel, and basically it was a whole meal for maybe, I don't know, $8 or something like that. And as we're walking along, she's telling us where the famous musicians and authors lived and worked and wrote their first songs, and showing us the beautiful architecture in Greenwich Village. I highly recommend Free Tours by Foot Greenwich Village Food Tour. They're doing them all the time. Any of you can get in on that. And I tipped her, I think, $3. I felt like if 30 people all gave her $3, she worked for not quite 2 hours. I felt like she's doing pretty good. So I think the whole thing was less than $12 for me. It was food, it was fun and interesting, and I highly recommend it. After that, I had the enormous privilege of seeing a free concert at Juilliard. So Juilliard is where some of the most famous performing arts, musicians, actors, and talented people come from, like Yo-Yo Ma, Kelsey Grammer, Viola Davis. Many famous people went to Juilliard. And they have free student recitals just like any other university in the world that has music programs. and I was able to see a brilliant up-and-coming Venezuelan soprano named Maria Brea. She was accompanied by Juilliard pianists and cellists and other musicians. It was amazing. I was crying. I highly recommend doing that if you're there during the school year. Then I went to the Roosevelt Island Tram. It cost about $4, $3 or $4 one way. I was able to use my unlimited Metro card both ways. I didn't have to pay any extra. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's an aerial tram that crosses the East River. You get a beautiful view of Manhattan. You can take gorgeous photos. It's a fun ride. It's very, very quick. I don't know. To me, some of these quick things are really worth doing. You know, you have to kind of get to it, but it's not too far from a lot of other things you might be seeing while you're there, and I thought it was totally worth it. I enjoyed it. It's very, very brief, but very enjoyable. Great views, great ride. It's very slow. It's not like some super adventure, but I liked it, so I would do it again. The next day, I went to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. There are almost always museums, zoos, aquariums, special different exhibits and things that are going on that are free certain days of the week and certain days of the month. Whatever days you're going to New York City, search and see which museums and which attractions are free on those days. And let me tell you, you will find some. So I absolutely love flowers, and I went to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens during a free admission the next day. It was absolutely gorgeous. They had these huge flowers that are called Japanese tree peonies that were literally the size of my head. It was just gorgeous. They also have a really great gift shop there that has some really, really nice gifts. I got a few things there. They're not cheap, but they're just really nice, beautiful, beautiful things. And then after that, I went to the New York Public Library, the main building, the oldest main building. It's called the Stephen A. Schwarzman Building. And I highly recommend looking at it. It's just an amazing example of opulent, old world, Rococo architecture and design. And I want to say it beats some of the palaces I saw in England easily. It's just gorgeous, and it's a public library. I mean, just the frescoes and stuff on the ceiling that look like the sky, the blue and the clouds. It's just beautiful. Actually, I don't think it's Rococo design. I don't really know the architectural and design words. I just know what I like. But anyway, it's free, so you have to go. And you should definitely check out the Rose Main Reading Room. It is absolutely amazing. And they do have free guided tours as well, so you should do that. Just be sure, it's just like Juilliard and just like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Be sure you're ready to have your bags looked through. You have to open your bags and let them look through them before you come in. After that, I went back to the Met so that I could shop at the clearance store because I didn't get to do that because it closed before my tour the other time I was there. Something I was planning to do that day that I didn't get to do, and it makes me very sad, is community rowing. They have free community rowing at the Hudson River Park. I did this like rowing crew thing here in Arizona, and it was so nice. It was like synchronous and contemplative, and it's like a full body workout. You wouldn't think, but it really is. But it's kind of expensive to take lessons, and so I was so excited because they have free community rowing on the Hudson on Sundays and Tuesdays, but it didn't start until 6 p.m. and it takes an hour, and I had a 2-hour commute back to my hotel room, so I couldn't get back before dark, so I didn't get to do that. And I missed a few other things that I would like to do maybe next time if I get a chance. Like, I would really love to go to the Tenement Museum. And of course, I want to see the world headquarters at Warwick. I'm definitely gonna do that at some point. And also, I would love to have seen the Chelsea High Line. It's a park built on an elevated train track that's no longer being used. And I would very much like to see the Upright Citizens Brigade. That's an improv comedy theater started by Amy Poehler, and they have shows for $5, and sometimes she drops in. So at Upright Citizens Brigade, you might get a chance to see a big name celebrity do comedy for only $5. But the $5 shows don't start until 11 p.m., so I didn't want to do it by myself and be walking around the New York City streets at 2 a.m. So next time I'll go to the congregation and find some adventurous sisters to go with me who kind of know the area and so that we can be safe. Okay, so let's talk about public transportation. Let me first say that my sister-in-law did an amazing job of finding us a hotel that was beautiful in Newark, New Jersey. She had a challenge because she had to find a hotel that would allow 5 people. If you only have 4 people, you have more options than we did, okay? First, you should know that most people do not drive their cars into Manhattan. Most of the things that you're going to want to do there are in Manhattan. But the traffic in Manhattan is some of the worst in the world, and the parking is even worse. You could drive around 2 hours looking for a parking spot, and when you find one, if you find one, it could be exorbitantly expensive. So what you need is called a Metro card. Within Manhattan, you will need to ride the New York City subway or bus, and both of those things you can get on with the Metro card, a yellow card that you swipe. If you stay 2 days, you should pay per ride. It's $2.75 going in one direction. So you may have to pay for more than one ride to get to your destination. If you get an unlimited card, it costs $35. And if you stay 3 or more days, I've done the math and it will pay for itself. So you should do that. Okay, and one time I swiped my card and the light would not turn green. I swiped like 6 times. That happens, just move to the next machine. Their computers, they glitch. I knew there was money on the card. It just didn't work for whatever reason. So don't panic if that happens. So people usually do not stay in Manhattan hotels. They are the most expensive of the city. In the winter right now, you'll look and they're kind of cheap. But in the spring, fall, even summer, expect them to just about triple in cost what you're seeing right now. So the further you get away from Manhattan, the cheaper they get. Also, you will have lower quality for the brand that you're used to in New York. So for instance, if you're used to staying in La Quinta Inn and it's fine with you in most places, in New York it's going to be a little less nice than what you're expecting. So maybe go up one on the quality so that you can have a hotel that it is at least as nice as what you're expecting. That's not necessarily true though in the upscale suburbs. That's true in the 5 boroughs. But I think like in some parts of New Jersey that are kind of nicer, like North Bergen, even the Super 8 there looks pretty nice. So you want to find a happy medium. If you stay too far out from Manhattan, yes, it's cheaper, but then you're going to donate about 4 hours of your precious New York City time every day to commuting. So what you're looking for is about an hour commute one way in. If you have a car that you can bring to the city, you do not need a hotel with a shuttle because you can drive to the first stop on your commute, the first train station that you will need to get in. But be prepared to pay to park your car all day. Anywhere in and around New York, you will pay for that. If you aren't taking a car into the city and you have just flown, you will very much need to stay in a hotel with a shuttle. You need a shuttle. Not necessarily that takes you to the airport, but that would be nice. That takes you to your first stop on your commute. So, why do you need a hotel with a shuttle if you don't have a car in New York City? Here's what getting around when you stay in like New Jersey is. You walk a little bit, then you take a bus. Then you walk a little bit, then you take a train. Then you walk a little bit, then you take a subway. Then you walk a little bit, and then you take another subway. And then you walk a little bit, and you get to your destination. Now imagine doing that 10 times a day. You are going to be so tired and so exhausted and your feet are going to hurt so much that if you don't have a car to take you at least to your first stop and at least back from your last stop of the day to your hotel, you are going to absolutely hate it. So if you don't have a car in the city at all, get a hotel that has a shuttle that will at least take you to your first train station that you need to go to. Okay, you need to call the hotel. You need to ask them multiple questions about the shuttle. Which places will it take me? How often does the shuttle run? Do I have to reserve it in advance? How far in advance do I have to reserve it? How much does the shuttle cost? It's not free, but trust me, it's better to pay for the shuttle than additional public transportation. Now, whether you have a car or not, if you stay in New Jersey, you also need commuter rail. That's an additional form of public transportation. You cannot use your yellow New York City subway card, Metro card, to get back and forth between New Jersey and Manhattan. So you have two options. You can use New Jersey Transit. There are many trains throughout New Jersey that will take you into New York Penn Station. Or you can use what's called a PATH train, capital P-A-T-H. It stands for Port Authority Trans Hudson. And I strongly recommend using PATH. PATH has more drop-off options in Manhattan. And it's simpler on the New Jersey side, and it's a little bit cheaper. It is a little bit slower, and New Jersey Transit tries to make it seem like if you take theirs to the New York Penn Station, you'll be further north, but you're actually just about even with the 33rd Street station that PATH will take you to. So you're not really going to save much time doing that at all. So I recommend using the PATH system to get between New Jersey and Manhattan. And then, of course, your Metro card in Manhattan. Do not stay far out in Long Island, past Brooklyn and Queens, hoping to take the Long Island Railroad in every day. It will take you forever. Do not stay in New Jersey thinking that you're going to use ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft. I know Lyft, for one, charges you an additional $20 per ride just to cross the Hudson River from New Jersey into Manhattan. So a $15 ride now costs you $35 ride. You do not use ride-sharing apps if you stay in New Jersey. If you want to stay on the west side in New Jersey, you should stay in Jersey City, Newport, or Hoboken in any hotel with a shuttle to the nearest PATH station. Or even better, you could stay in North Bergen, which has hotels with shuttles that will actually drive you directly into Manhattan for a small fee. That's even better. On the east side, if you want to stay in one of the 5 boroughs, so that you can use just your Metro card, that is possible. You need to stay in the Queens neighborhoods of Astoria, A-S-T-O-R-I-A, or a neighborhood in Queens called Long Island City. The locals call it L-I-C. That's a neighborhood in Queens. In Brooklyn, you could stay in a neighborhood called Greenpoint. Make sure the hotel you choose is very close to a subway station, or better yet, has a shuttle that will drive you to the nearest subway station. However, if you stay in one of the 5 boroughs, not New Jersey, but one of the 5 boroughs, Queens or even Manhattan or Brooklyn, and you have 2 or more people in your group, it may cost you the same or even less to ditch public transportation altogether and use the ride-sharing apps like Uber. I think Lyft is a cheaper one. Guys, thank you so much for listening to all this. I hope some of it helps you even just a little bit. I love you all, and I hope to see you soon. Bye!